everybody for coming out to this event today, talking about our story, which is something I think is very imperative for us as Black people to really define our own story. So when Tyra first talked to me about it, I was just so excited for us to have a time to talk about our story. Now, I'm not going to talk about my personal life story, but for us to dig into the depths of who we really are, as opposed to allowing other people to dictate and define who we are, because as a people, we have been defined by others. Our history has been defined by others. Our entire existence has been defined by people who do not look like us. So when I think about our story, the first thing I think is, well, when did our story begin? Did our story begin in slavery? Did our story begin in a jungle in Africa, uncivilized? Well, neither one of those things are correct, but a lot of our people have no idea what our beginning to our story really is. And since we don't, and since we're educated by people who don't look like us, they can make us feel as if our story started from either our traumas or from some negative, fictitious image. So many of our people look at ourselves as a race, and it's like, well, we were brought here as slaves and we haven't achieved anything since. And we have so many of our people who look at our history or lack thereof, or their lack of knowing what our history is, because we have a rich history, not just going back to Africa and the great things that we did there, but we did a lot of great things in America that's just not a part of the public school curriculum. And so we've done so many things, but when other people get to dictate your beginning of your history, they can begin to dictate who you become. So where does your story begin? But not only us as a people, how about you individually? A lot of times people want to start your beginning at where you were traumatized at. So you went through something traumatic and everybody want to talk to you from that point forward. They want to talk to you as a victim. They want to talk to you as somebody who's still stuck in whatever happened to you. And instead of you being able to take yourself before that, you find yourself falling right into the same trap. You find yourself identifying as what happened to you. And instead of you being someone who went through something, you find yourself calling yourself a victim. It's a big difference between a human being who was raped or a rape victim. And we have too many people that have the victim mindset because they feel as if their story starts at the trauma. And they forget everything that happened prior to the trauma. And when you forget the great richness of your own life and you want to start at the trauma, everything that goes after that is going to be traumatic. Because everything is going to be through a traumatic lens. Because you allowed your own story to start from the trauma. But not only do people want to start us at traumas, they also want to start us at some fictitious negative images. When we look at the way our people have been portrayed, especially in Africa. I know when I was young, I had no concept of cities in Africa. I had no concept of any of the great thriving things that were still going on there. All I saw was the Feed the Children commercials in the poorest parts of Ethiopia. So they create this negative image, which caused me to have a self-hate of my own people because I felt like we just wasn't nothing either. But individually, people will still continue to project negative images on you, especially depending on where you're from. If you're from the projects or any place they want to call the hood, or people want to call the ghetto, and you get labeled by where you're from, and they make it seem as if you aren't anybody simply because of where you're from, because the image that they have of people that are from where you are from now is projected onto you. And one thing about me, I don't really mind what people try to project on me, because I don't care what other people think about me. But the problem becomes when people say it enough that you start to believe it. And when we begin to believe the false origins of ourselves, we lose our ability to move forward. So not only do we need to understand where our story began, we have to ask ourselves, who is the author of our story? Now, we have to forcefully tell our own story. as a people and as individuals. And what I mean by forcefully is I mean we literally have to fight to make sure we are the ones who are telling our own stories and nobody else has the ability to speak for us. Because when other people get to speak for you, they can speak some things that aren't really beneficial for you. I remember years ago, a friend of mine, real tall, skinny, kind of lanky guy. And there was another guy from about a couple blocks from where we were from who always gave people nicknames and always teased people. And he always would try to call my friend Goofball. And my friend would get irate every time. Don't call me Goofball, until the point where they almost got into a fist fight over a playful nickname. But his thing was, you're not going to define me. And I'm not going to let the way you view me, because of my height or how thin I am, for you to call me Goofball, because that's the way you wanted to define me. So as a people and as individuals, we have to make sure we're not letting anybody else tell our stories. We can't allow people who are going to use a negative image of ourselves or our people for their benefit to continue to tell our story. Now, you got to learn your origin, but not only remember what the origin of your story and where it started, but you got to make sure you are the author. You can't have anybody else writing the chapters of your life, because then they begin to erase certain things out of your life. I love that we're learning about the Black Wall Streets. And I say streets because it was way more than just Tulsa, Oklahoma. But it's sad that so many of our youth have no idea about the things that we did. It's sad that right here on North Broad Street that most people have no idea what Reverend Leon Sullivan did and the things that he built and all of the aerospace programs and everything that he did right here on North Broad, but has been erased because other people have been telling our story. So we feel like there hasn't been any greatness. Our youth only view, I mentor a lot of youth, and whenever I ask them what they want to be, it's always an entertainer or an athlete. Because they don't even conceptualize the greatness that's already in them. And that's because our stories have been painted that way. We've been painted as the only thing that we have done, or only thing that we have accomplished in a successful realm is entertainment or some kind of athlete. Outside of that, there hasn't been too many images of things like Hidden Figures. Those weren't the only women or the only black people who did those things. There's still black women today and black men today who are in those programs, but because other people are writing our story, we find ourselves subject to what it is that they are saying about us. The next thing we have to do is separate the story they wrote from the truth. So if you already know your origin and you begin to make sure you are the author of your story, you have to separate the story that they told about you or the story that they told about us from what the truth actually is. Now, we have a problem with internalizing what other people have said about us and then merging it into our own lives. It becomes a part of who we are. It becomes a part of our existence because we have not separated the lies from the truth. I'm reminded of a story in the Bible of a man named Achan who, the Bible says he took up the accursed things, but it says he mixed it with his stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the problem was not just that he took something that he wasn't, but he merged it with everything that was his. And because of that, him and his family ended up losing their lives because he did not separate the bad from the good. And so as a people and as individuals, we have to make sure we are separating the falsities from what the truth is. Because if we go by what the world is saying about us, especially black men, we just ain't no good. We're not doing nothing positive. We're not in none of our children's lives. We're all in jail. None of us are in college. There's so many people that are saying it's more black men in jail than in college, and the number is just false. Mm-hmm. There's way more black men in college than it is in jail, but again, if you're not writing your story, and if you don't separate the falsities from the truth, you begin to believe it. Because the more you begin to hear some stuff and you're not fighting it, it becomes a part of what you subconsciously believe and how you view yourself and how you view your people. And this is one of the reasons why we can't rise up and have the unity that we have, because most black people don't trust each other. Well, why don't we trust each other? Well, what's the origin of that? As soon as speaking about slavery, they had billboards and flyers everywhere. You can Google them. Jonas said, "Around blacks, watch your back." And they put this distrust in us. And they continue to tell us that we are untrustworthy until we believe that each other are untrustworthy. And we don't want to really put our money in a black person's hands. And I don't want to trust you with anything. I don't want to trust you to lead me. I don't want to really be a part of anything because I don't trust what you're really going to do. All because we have not separated the falsities from the truth. So as a people and as individuals, this thing is going to be a dual thing, each one. As an individual, you have to make sure you are separating what people said about you from the truth about you. Because you know what the truth is. You know what really happened. You know how things really went down. A lot of people don't understand or know what might have drove you to do some things. Now, I counsel men, and as a part of my counseling, I live by the phrase, the whys are more important than the whats. I don't care what somebody does. I want to know why. Because you can do something that seems to be bad for a good reason, or you can do something that seems to be good for a bad reason. And if we don't understand the whys, we'll continue to judge people by their whats, but we don't even know what's driving them. And they'll continue to project that on you, but you're the only person that knows your whys. You're the only person that knows what really happened to you. You're the only person who really knows your story. But when people continue to add on to your story and you don't separate what they said about you from what you know is true, it begins to be a part of yourself. And you internalize all of the issues. You internalize all of the negative stereotypes that are projected on you. You internalize everything that everybody said when all you had to do was make sure you separate the lies from the truth and forcefully make sure I'm separating this thing because I'm not going to let you tell me who I am. The next thing is we have to understand that your story will dictate how far you can go. Now, your story is like a resume. And we have to understand that in the Willie Benz letter, right, it teaches the masters to make sure they erase all of the history from the African. Because if they remember what they came from, they will always be empowered to go back to it. So the only way we can turn them from a physically enslaved being to a mentally enslaved being is if we erase all of their history. And once their history is gone, they're not going to go any further because they don't know what they came from. So if you don't properly know your story, if you don't properly know who you are, if you don't properly know the gifts that are inside of you, if you don't properly know all of the potential that's inside of you, if that's not written in your story, it's going to hinder you from going further. Because you don't even realize what you can do. So many of us are living so far beneath our potential, it's a shame. I was speaking at Vision Quest one day and asking the young guys, what do they think they're good at? And they all had something except one guy. One guy said, I'm not good at anything. I've never been good at anything, and I don't have any talents. I don't have any gifts. Amazing thing is, all of the young guys was like, what, man, you good at this and you good at that. And they began to pour into him, but he didn't believe he could do anything. Now, we all know he had some kind of gift because everybody is created with the ability to do something and to do something well. But you know what? He heard a lot of negative things throughout his entire life, and he allowed other people to write his story. When they wrote his story, they wrote in his story that he didn't have anything good about him, that there was nothing good about him, that he was never going to be anything, that he was going to be just like his dad, and that he was going to be just like everybody from the same neighborhood that he was from. And look at you in jail right now, and you know you ain't never going to be nothing. And he internalized all of that and did not recognize the greatness that was in him, which prevented him from being great, or which was preventing him from being great. So we have to understand that your story is going to dictate how far you can go. So you have to get your story in order. You have to get your talents and your gifts and your desires, you got to get it in order. You have to expose yourself to more because you cannot have or attain that which you don't even know exists.
And a lot of us have been created to do some things that we haven't even studied up on or that we haven't exposed ourselves to. The last thing is, what is being written for your story now? What is being written for your story now? So if you know where your story began and you understand that you have to make sure you are the author of your story and you are separating the lies from the truth of your story, and you know that your story is going to determine how far you can go. Now is where the proactive side of this thing goes on. Because everything else we were just reacting. But now is the proaction. What are you writing right now? What are you writing for your story from today forward? The pen is in your hand. The ink in the pen is full. The paper is there. You already know you can't let nobody else write the story. But are you writing your story correctly? Or are you still allowing other things to even dictate what you write about your own story? What are you writing down? Are you writing down everything that you believe that you can be? And sometimes we have to begin to expand on that because we find ourselves not believing that we can do certain things. But I want you to know, whatever it is that you desire to do, you can do. It's nothing that can hinder you from doing any and everything that you want. Now, personally, I just set out to do stuff and I just do it. I've done so many different things. I was just talking to my girlfriend about my daughter because she tries and does more things than I've ever done. She's just, if I see it, I'm going to try it, sign me up for it. Now I'm always somewhere else with her doing this and doing that, but I got to support my baby. But she's putting herself in position because she's continually trying something new, continually expanding what it is that she can do. She's not going to be just a typical girl from the block because she talks to me about playing lacrosse. I ain't never played lacrosse, y'all. Never been to a lacrosse game, but that's what she wants to do right now. What are you writing in your journal of life from this day forward? You have to be intentional about what you're writing in your story. This event here is about our story. That's personal. Ours means that's a possessive word. It's ours. Or it's mine, it's yours, it's nobody else's. It's not for anybody else to dictate. It's for you to create. But that's the final thing. What are you writing in the story of your life? So those are the 5 things. First, understand the beginning and know the beginning, origins of your story. Know who is authoring your story and make sure you are the author. Separate the lies from the truth of your story. Understand that your story is going to determine how far you can go. And the last thing is make sure that you are writing your own story and making it the best novel that you can about your life. Thank you.